You are listening to the Tricorder Transmissions, ep005. And now, here are Craig and Jeff.
Science.
It's poetry in motion. She turned her tender eyes to me as deep as any ocean,
Yeah, baby.
as sweet as any harmony. Oh, she blinded me with science.
She blinded me with science.
Blinded me with science. And failed me in biology. When I'm dancing close to her.
Hello, and here we are in episode 5 of the Tricorder Transmissions. This week we are talking about The Enemy Within. I am Craig, and I have along with me.
This is Jeff.
And interestingly enough, it seems like the last couple weeks in all the intros, we've been able to talk about something Star Trek related.
Yeah, some newsworthy stuff.
And this week is no different as Star Trek is in the news again. Do you want to talk about one of the two stories that we have?
It is a little bit slower of a news week, but we do have a couple of things. And Shatner is appearing at a big convention called Dragon Con down in Atlanta this weekend. It's Labor Day weekend. And I know somebody who actually has gone down there every year so far and is planning to go down to see Shatner. I wish I could go, but just timing doesn't work out for me. So no Shatner at Dragon Con for me this year. I have a feeling it's going to be really hot down there, though.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, I know. Friend of the show, Guy Hutchinson, he co-hosts a podcast called The Adventure Club with John Jay, and John Jay actually moderates a couple panels down at Dragon Con. I know he's way into it, so maybe if he has a Shatner encounter, we can bring him on and talk about it. And please make sure you get the story from your friend who's going down. Is he doing autographs and pictures, or is it more just like a panel or something?
Well, I know the last time that he was there, he did do pictures, but they were professional only.
Okay, so it was probably what, like $80 or something?
I don't know the price. Yeah. I didn't ask, but I know that you could do autographs at the table, and you had to sign up to do the professional shots, and they fill up quick, so you kind of have to move quick when you get there.
Yeah. I'd imagine they only allot a certain amount of time for the professional photo op, and they do some quick math and figure out how many they can sell.
Yeah, I'm sure they won't have a problem selling out Shatner photo ops.
Yeah, and it seems interesting. I know back in August, they had the Star Trek convention in Vegas, which Shatner was at. And in October, he's going to be up in this area in New York at Comic-Con.
Yep.
So it seems like he's doing a lot of the conventions, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I guess he's cramming in as much as he can. I'm sure he makes a pretty mint off of those conventions. So, if he can cram in a weekend here and a weekend there and, do his other stuff when he's not doing that, I guess he can probably still rake in quite a good hefty sum of cash.
Yeah, and maybe with some of that extra cash, he could pick up a copy of Into Darkness on Blu-ray when it comes out next week.
Yeah. Well, I guess we've got to get into this one, huh?
Yeah, so Into Darkness was the new Star Trek movie that came out this summer. It was the sequel to the 2009 sort of reboot, if you want to call it that. And one of the frustrating things for a lot of fans is they announced the special features for the Blu-ray, and a lot of the features that people would normally want are retailer exclusives. For example, the commentary track with director J.J. Abrams is only going to be available on the iTunes version.
Yep.
So the standalone Blu-ray is going to have basically what amounts to electronic press kit material featurettes.
Yeah.
It's really a shame because with Blu-ray, one of the main advantages was you had all this storage space, so you could put the movie on there, and then you could fit hours of other content.
Yep. It's a shame. So I was listening earlier. I was in the car. I had another podcast on. It's a tech podcast, but this subject came up on that podcast, and they used a phrase to describe this that I have never heard before, but I think is a great 2-word phrase to describe this, and it's a consumer hostile approach to media.
Yes.
Consumer hostile. So you're the only people that you're pissing off are your clientele, your client base, your customer base. So, there doesn't seem to be, I mean, you're offering incentives to these different stores, which makes the stores happy, but it pisses the people off. So there seems to be more of a desire in these media companies to please retailers than to please their actual customer base.
Yeah, and it's a real shame, because I think what happens is, if you have somebody that might have been on the fence with picking up the movie to own, they're just going to look at all the different versions that are out there, throw their hands up in the air and say, you know what? I don't need this movie at all.
Yeah. I wish I could say that I was going to do that.
Yeah.
But I know I'm going to wind up buying it on Blu-ray at some point. It's just where I'm going to get it from. So I guess I'm going to have to do some research and find out if the Target edition is better or the Best Buy edition is better. Or I'm not a big digital movie buyer, so I'm not going to buy it on iTunes, commentary or no commentary. I can't do that. So
yeah,
I need a disc.
And that's the frustrating thing, because I think going back to even as far back as Laserdisc, one of the main selling points of the special features was the commentary track. DVD, that was one of the big selling points. Every time I got a DVD, if I looked on the back and saw it had a commentary track, boom. If I was on the fence, I was buying it. And when they made the transition from DVD to Blu-ray, they started making commentary tracks exclusive to Blu-ray, which kind of bothered me, but I said, oh, you know what? They want to have people change formats, upgrade to Blu-ray. I can sort of understand that. But this whole retailer exclusive thing, if you want to give retailer exclusive to certain featurettes, which I've seen in the past, at Best Buy, you get a bonus disc that has a 30-minute featurette on the stunts. You can do without that. To me, a commentary track is too essential of a component of the special features to be broken off and offered as an incentive to a retailer.
And you can't even get the commentary track from iTunes and then play it along with your Blu-ray on your TV set.
Yeah.
So you would have to have, an Apple TV or Chromecast or some other way to play this on your television set.
Yeah.
Or else you're sitting in front of a computer watching it.
Yeah, and the most interesting thing about this whole sort of thing is that with physical media being in the state that it's in, or even the purchasing of media in general being in the shape it's in, you'd think that this, as you termed, consumer hostile approach would be the wrong way to go.
You would think, but a couple of months back, I ran into the same problem, not with a movie, but with an album. So I was big into this band called Rogue Wave, and they had sent out a pre-release, pre-purchase special offer. If you pre-ordered the CD through them, you would get an early digital copy, and you get an access to one of their their sound check parties at one of their shows.
Sure.
So I went on there and I looked and said, hey, the disc comes with 2 bonus tracks. This is pretty awesome. So it was great. So I got this thing, and I'm happily, the disc comes in the mail. I'm happily listening to it. So I go to leave a review on iTunes. And guess what? There's another bonus track that's exclusive just to iTunes. Like, oh, wonderful. So now I have to buy that. So I bought that from iTunes. So I download that track, so I go to Amazon. And guess what?
Yep.
There's another one there that's not on iTunes, not on the CD. So they're sprinkling these things all over the place. So now you've got to make the rounds. You've got to go around and buy an extra track here, an extra track there. They're not on the disc. So if I want to play the disc in my car, I'm not going to have these other 2 songs.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to either rip the CD and burn an entire new one with the extra tracks, or I'm gonna have to MP3 all of them and put them on a flash drive and listen to them in the car. It's just so damn inconvenient.
Oh yeah, and at least there you had the option of buying the individual tracks.
Right.
I remember a couple years ago there were certain exclusive iTunes tracks that you couldn't get unless you bought the complete album.
Yeah, I think they've started to curb that practice because that's a really, really shady practice.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's kind of disheartening to hear this because if this does move a lot of units, other studios will take note and say, hey, you know what? Maybe this is the model that we should be following. And then all of a sudden, you're going to have to start really choosing, where to buy your media based on what commentary or what special features mean the most to you.
I know it's really a sin. As a clinger on to physical media, this really bothers me because I've already vowed that I'm going to be buying physical media until I can't possibly buy it anymore. And I get a lot of flack for that from people, but I like to actually possess and own things. And if I buy a movie, I've never actually bought a movie to download, but if I ever did, I would just feel like I don't own anything. Like it could just vanish one day.
Yeah.
And what if one day the service that I bought it from goes down and I can no longer get it and I have just the copy on my hard drive or, it seems like there's just too many variables.
Yeah. And I mean, we could probably devote the rest of our hour that
we
normally devote to the podcast to this subject. So why don't we talk about something positive that happened with you Star Trek related this week?
Oh,
and it ties back into us both watching Star Trek 5, what is that? The Undiscovered Country.
The Final Frontier.
Final Frontier. I always get those two confused.
Yeah, I know the colon title is always a little. So Star Trek 5. Yeah, as spurred by our conversation last week, I and you had rewatched Star Trek 5, and then inspired me to rewatch Star Trek 5, which for me is not torturous as it seems to be for everybody else. So I got nostalgic after watching this, and I was doing some research on the movie on the site Memory Alpha. Been to Memory Alpha, and I happened to notice that there was such a thing. We were talking about. I looked up the Marshmallow launcher just to see what was listed there, and then we started talking about it. And you sent me an eBay link. To this the actual limited edition craft marshmallow dispensing thing that I didn't really realize existed. So I quickly there were a couple of them on eBay too, and I jumped on it and I bought it, and it's here now with me. So I actually possess a new in-box unopened. Well, the box itself is open because it was a packing box, but the plastic wrap around the marshmallow dispenser is not open, but it does in fact say Star Trek 5 The Final Frontier craft marshmallow dispenser on it.
And it comes with what, a fork and a spoon?
Yeah, and a belt clip, like a little carabiner style belt clip. So I'm going to put a picture up on the website when this episode launches so that you can actually see the marshmallow dispenser. But I will say a really cool thing. I posted the picture today on Twitter, and I got a very excited tweet question from somebody that wasn't following me, asking me where he could get one.
Oh, wow.
So I pointed him towards eBay, of course, since that's really the only place you could possibly get these, since they are quite old.
Yeah, and it also came with what, a letter from Admiral Kirk?
Yeah, there's a slip of paper in there telling, on one side of it says, join the Star Trek magazine fan club thing.
Yeah.
And on the other side is a little letter signed by Admiral James T. Kirk talking about the marshmallow dispenser. But the funny thing, of course, is that he was demoted before this movie came out, right? At the end of Star Trek 4,
yeah,
he's court-martialed and he's reduced in rank from admiral down to captain, but he still signs Admiral James T. Kirk.
Yeah. And in the movie, isn't Spock the one that's actually using the dispenser?
Yep, Spock uses the marshmallow dispenser to give them some much-needed roasted marshmallows in their camping trip there when they're eating Dr. McCoy's special beans and singing "Row, row, row your boat."
Yeah. So I do know that you did tweet some pictures, and I know that the Tricorder Transmissions Twitter account retweeted that, and then also, like you said, you're going to post those pictures up on the tricordertransmissions.com.
Yep.
When this episode goes up, and the tricordertransmissions.com is the site you can go to get all of our information. You can get all our episodes. You can get our contact information, which includes our Twitter account, and that is a really good portal to all things the Tricorder Transmissions. Now, I know that we're taking up a lot of time on this intro, but real quick, I wanted to ask you about a movie that we both saw this past weekend, The World's End.
Yeah, fantastic. We
Right?
really, really enjoyed it. I was a big fan of the previous two movies in this quote-unquote trilogy.
Yeah.
Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. Both
yeah.
I really, really liked. And my expectations, my hopes were very high for this. And I have to say I came out very satisfied.
Yeah.
I don't think I could nitpick very much. I think they hit all the good points. Pacing was pretty good, although some people say it's a little slow. I didn't really feel that way.
Yeah.
And I said the ending was superb.
Yeah. The one thing I noticed with it is, having seen the marketing for this movie, and I saw very little, but I mean, I saw a trailer or two or a commercial here and there, but knowing that there is sort of a twist coming in the movie, and it's not just about a bunch of guys on a pub crawl, made me sort of able to sit back, watch these characters to develop before they sort of got thrown into the action, which I thought was really neat. And I mean, anytime you watch a movie, from Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, at this point, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get some laughs. You're going to get a certain style of filmmaking. So I was willing to just sit back and go along for the ride.
Yep.
And the payoff was definitely worth it. And they made a nice little trio of films. It's kind of interesting. I mean, the ending of it kind of reminded me of almost sort of like something you'd see in Doctor Who, which was kind of neat.
Yeah, I guess it kind of was. There was I kind of think I like to look at this movie as almost a fusion of Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz in a way. It's got elements of both.
Yeah.
So, you got the small town with the weird goings on, kind of like they had in Hot Fuzz, and then you got that sort of zombie type thing going on with the robot people. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah,
it was pretty cool. And I think the way the movie wrapped, I think it was a great way to close out that 3-movie package.
And it was a ballsy ending. I mean, they kind of deliver on the title of the movie.
They really do. They really do.
Yeah.
The last, there were 2 scenes at the end, the for 2 different characters, and I think both of them were very well done.
Yeah. One thing I think that those 3 movies do, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End, are they approach male friendship in a way that you normally don't see it in the movies. And all 3 movies sort of cover it in a different way, but I think that's really the emotional sort of through line through all those movies. It's sort of showing the relationships that, platonic relationships or, non-sexual relationships that men can have with each other.
Sure. Absolutely.
And it's kind of neat to see, because normally you don't see that, especially in a movie, like Hot Fuzz, which is kind of a send off of like action movies. You see this kind of really cool relationship between Simon Pegg and Nick Frost.
Yeah, I agree. And it seems to almost ring true because of the relationships that I have with some guy friends of my own. There's more than just that kind of, hey, let's go watch football kind of thing going on. So at least you can have some meaningful conversations and nostalgia and enjoy some common things that are not typically I guess showcased in these types of movies.
Yeah, and you know what? It's one of those things where I think with the long holiday weekend in front of us, I wouldn't be surprised if I end up at the theater seeing it again.
I might too, actually. I might too.
But before we do that, we have to sit down and watch this week's episode of Star Trek: The Enemy Within.
Yes, we do. And I guess as usual, we will go over the air dates. So original air date, October 6th of 1966, and remastered January 26th of 2008.
Yeah, very cool. And this is a neat episode. I look forward to talking about it. And I guess I'll give a quick summary to get us, sort of all on the same page in terms of what we have, in front of us.
Mhm.
A transporter malfunction splits Captain Kirk into two people, one good and one evil, and neither capable of functioning well separately. And boy, do we get a lot of Shatner in this episode.
Oh, yeah. This is a great, great example of Shatner at his best.
All right, so do you want to jump right into it?
Yeah, let's give a 3 count.
All right, so we will start in 3, 2, 1. So this is kind of a neat episode in the fact that it was written by a pretty famous writer, author Richard Matheson, who died actually earlier this year.
Wow.
He's an author and a screenwriter. His novels include I Am Legend, which has been made into a movie like at least 3 times.
Yeah, Vincent Price was in the original film version, right?
Yeah. And then they did the Charlton Heston.
By the way, here's the dog with the horn on it. This always cracks me up every time I see this episode.
Yes.
Is that dog? That poor thing.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's just a naturally calm dog, or they had to give it something to keep it settled down. 'Cause it's got stuff stuck all over it and a fake tail.
Yeah, it does. It does. Show some aggressive tendencies later. So it was probably just one of those really good, trained Hollywood animals.
Spray painted pink or tan, whatever that is.
And I'm glad in the remastered versions they didn't really screw with that dog too much.
Yes.
So he also wrote A Stir of Echoes, which was also made into a movie, and What Dreams May Come. He also, in addition to all of that, he wrote 16 episodes of The Twilight Zone, including Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, which also
Shatner
starred
classic.
William Shatner, and an episode of the show called Steel, which was based on a short story, which inspired the movie Real Steel, which came out a few years back.
Wow, how many degrees to Kevin Bacon on that one?
Right. So now we have a little bit of transporter problems, which are going to sort of get this whole episode in motion. So a crew member, he beams up with a hand injury and some
yellow
ore on his...
which actually now looks more like paint than it did when it was on the actual planet's surface. It looked more like a dust. Now it kind of looks like almost looks like something threw up on him.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a little alternate. There's another one of those Star Trek geese, this time in red.
Like the bathrobe.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little jumper or something.
I kind of liked Scotty's interaction here with the crew member. I don't know, for some reason I just liked his delivery and the way he interacted with him. I don't know, it kind of showed I don't know how professional he is and how good he is at his job, I guess.
Yeah, I think you only see there's only one episode in the future where you see Scotty kind of lose his cool, and it's over a woman, of course, but that's for the most part, Scotty is one of the most professional people on the ship. He doesn't seem to lose his cool, which is a great thing, which is partially why he's so heroic over the course of this entire franchise, I think.
Now, this episode really has me worried about the transporter technology.
Yeah, right.
And how often people put their faith in it in Starfleet. So Kirk has come off and something seems off. So Scotty's going to escort him to sickbay. And it's interesting here that Kirk says, "Don't leave the transporter room unattended," which is like movie and TV
it's a foreboding.
way of saying, something's about to happen.
Oh, boy.
We have this unattended transporter somehow beaming up an alternate version.
And, of course, he's standing the other way, so you can't see his face. So he can do this dramatic turn. Here's the dramatic turn with the lighting.
The great reveal.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yes.
What a great, great intro to this.
And actually, that shot was probably framed by director Leo Penn, who is dad to Sean Penn and Chris Penn and Michael Penn.
Spectacular.
And he actually became a director after his acting career went south.
Really?
Because he was one of those actors who had gotten called to the House Un-American Activities Committee back in the 50s when they were trying to find communists, and he refused to name names. Yeah. So he was blacklisted, and he had to find another way to provide for his family, and he became a director.
Wow.
So in addition to Star Trek, he went on to direct shows like Dr. Kildare, I Spy, Gunsmoke, Hawaii Five-0, Bonanza, Marcus Welby, MD, Kojak, Barnaby
Yeah.
Jones, Heart to Heart, Trapper John
Oh.
M.D., Magnum P.I., and Matlock. And
Matlock.
he died in 1998.
Matlock, one of my eternal favorites. It never ceases to amaze me how many episodes and movies there were in the Matlock series.
Mhm.
So
The ship looks really, really good in these remasters.
yeah, I love it.
The one thing about the original episodes is, they were using a great looking model. Yeah.
Just a side note, I just noticed because I've never watched this episode with the subtitling on before. We watched it with the subtitling on so the sound doesn't interfere with our recording, but they were orbiting a planet called Alpha, and they spelled it ALFA instead of the traditional ALPHA, which you normally think of the word alpha. I wonder what significance that has, or if that even was. It must have been written in the show dialogue for them to make the closed captioning for this. So what one of the significance of spelling it that way was?
Yeah, I don't know. I think in the research I did, it was spelled. And there's a great Kirk look. He's getting, I guess.
Recognition as captain there. Yeah, he's happy about that.
Mm-hmm. Which makes you wonder if the evil or the alternate version of Kirk that was sort of created by the transporter malfunction, what kind of memories he had.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what did the episode seems to imply that it split the good side from Kirk to the evil side. So what parts of Kirk does it exactly duplicate his memories and experiences in both?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. They don't really explore that. So, Kirk doesn't seem to be suffering. The good Kirk here doesn't seem to be suffering any memory loss other than he's got some fatigue, apparently.
So here's more of that futuristic medicine. He's got a spray bottle, and McCoy is basically telling this guy, you're going to be all healed up and ready to go back to work.
And here is evil Kirk demanding Saurian brandy, which I love about this series. Is there's so many different alcoholic beverages from so many different planets. But did you ever notice that all of them just have the name of a planet or a culture and then a regular traditional Earth alcohol names? So you have brandy, Romulan ale. So they have brandies and ale. So there's only the same types of booze across the universe, just with different distinctions from what planet or culture they're from.
Yeah.
And of course, for medicinal purposes, McCoy keeps a healthy selection of alcohol.
And
this is a really cool shot.
Oh yeah, it's like almost like it's tracking with him.
Yeah, it's almost like it was steady. So whoever was doing the camera work there had a very steady hand while he was walking backwards.
Yeah, and it was pre-Steadicam, so
because I really don't think that was a dolly shot.
Yeah. So this bottle that he's drinking from is gonna pop up in quite a few more episodes. So we'll note it when it occurs again. So now we have more Kirk, and I got to tell you, if there's any Star Trek prop I could have, it would be this sort of like Easter Island looking head that Kirk's got on his shelf in the corner of his room.
Really? Why is that?
It looks cool.
It's a good reason.
And it's one of those things where I think if somebody looked at it, they wouldn't realize it's from Star Trek right away.
Probably not.
Whereas opposed if you had a phaser or something, they'd be like,
of course,
they'd know.
Of course, yeah.
So it would be a good conversation starter.
So Spock is inquiring of Kirk about his behavior, and Kirk is dismissing it as Dr. McCoy having a joke at Spock's expense here.
Yeah, which definitely seems weird because it seems out of character for McCoy. It didn't seem like McCoy was the type to be a prankster.
Yeah, and maybe it presupposes things that we haven't seen. Maybe shed some light on the camaraderie of the three that we don't witness. Mm-hmm. So, implying that things happen. Here we go.
Yeah, here's
the vicious version of the... that's what I would be like if you glued a horn to my head.
It almost looks like they put that dog in a suit, an entire suit, like a pullover.
It does, doesn't it?
It looks like the only thing that's real on him that we're seeing is his face.
Yeah, he's got a little tail hanging off the back there. He's got like a weird rubber spine. And what are those little antennae that are sticking off? Is a little red and white antenna? It looks like...
So now the landing party is stranded. This is before they established that the Enterprise had shuttlecraft.
Yeah.
that they could send down to the planet's surface. And now we're going to get what I have to think is one of the most difficult Star Trek sequences to watch.
Yeah, it really is. And, looking back on this scene now, I question whether or not this should have been played out this way.
Watching it again after quite a few years of not having seen this episode, it definitely played very, very strong to me. And considering, I like how Kirk sort of has like eyeliner on here.
Yeah.
It's like very subtle to make him look a little bit darker. But this scene just, I can't imagine how this played when it originally aired. I mean, it's really, it's brutal.
Yeah, it's disturbing. And the thing that really bothers me, well, I mean, other than the fact that this is an attempted sexual assault on Yeoman Rand, but the thing that really bugs me about this is if you break this scene down and think about what it's really saying is, in the previous episodes, you can kind of tell Kirk sort of had a little bit of a thing for Rand, but he couldn't really do much about it because of his position and what have you. And we know from reading a lot of the Roddenberry's memoirs and some of the cast memoirs that originally the storyline was supposed to continue on with Kirk and Rand having a relationship. Mm-hmm. But the thing that bugs me about this scene, other than the fact that it's a sexual assault or an attempted sexual assault, is the fact that we're supposing that this behavior that Kirk is exhibiting now is actually a part of him as a person, but it's manifesting itself because his good side is not there to keep it in check.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So Kirk has an inner rapist, right? And I don't think that's accurate. I really didn't want to believe that Kirk would do something like this. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't want to believe he even had this in him. But I guess you could say that maybe, well, I don't know. It's hard to explain that away in my own mind. I don't know.
But I think that is pretty much what this episode speaks to.
Right.
And there, I can only imagine what that crew member was thinking. But it almost sort of speaks to the fact that inside all of us, mm-hmm. there is the sort of extreme good and the extreme evil. And it's almost, the two together almost balance each other out. So I never really thought about it in terms of like Kirk having an inner rapist.
Well, if you think, it's great that you just said that because, I had written down my my notes on the theme/philosophy of this particular episode, and you just almost recited them verbatim. So looking at this episode as a whole, it would seem that the philosophy or the theme of this episode is that people have a good and an evil side, and we need both of them in balance, to survive. But, what happens when the balance of the two is tipped? Mm-hmm. So what happens when one person happens to have a 60% evil side and a 40% good side, or 70%, 30%? And if the evil side has total control, like we're seeing here, do we all become murderous maniacs? Is that what happens to us? Mm-hmm. Really? I don't know, because I guess I've never separated my evil side and my good side, but I would like to think that animalistic side of me isn't there. But maybe in reality it is there.
Yeah.
And on the converse, as we'll see here, as Kirk, the good side of Kirk continues to develop and lose more of the evil parts, he becomes kind of more weak-willed and wishy-washy. Mm-hmm. So would that happen to us if we were, quote-unquote, all good?
Yeah, he slowly loses his ability to be a captain, basically.
Yeah. Now, and here we see Janice Rand post-attack.
Yeah, and you can imagine how difficult it is for her to sit here and with the person that just attacked her. And they basically noticed that she had scratched the evil Kirk version, and he doesn't have a scratch. And it's weird because at this point, it almost seems like Kirk and Spock put together the idea that there's probably an alternate version of Kirk on the ship from the transport malfunction, but then they act shocked later when it's fully discovered.
Yeah, I've seen this episode a handful of times over the years, and it always surprises me that Spock jumps right to this conclusion. He jumps right to this. Out of all the bizarre, weird things, shapeshifters, apparitions, Kirk could have had some sort of a healing thing that he could have used on his face. Spock jumps right to. There's obviously an imposter on board.
Well, it's kind of easy to assume that Spock would make that that leap after the dog and the transporter.
True,
You know.
true.
But it's weird. It just seems like they put this force as a theory and then really forget about it. And then kind of act surprised when they
Like,
realize.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
By the way.
It almost seems like they cut it out of sequence or something.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing about this episode is, in addition to being incredibly entertaining, it's really one of the episodes where not a lot happens.
No, actually.
I mean, it really it exists just to put forth the theory of what would happen if you split Kirk in half.
Yeah, and I guess from another angle, you could also say that it illustrates, Kirk's constant inner struggle between, his compassionate side and his more aggressive side, which, when combined, make him this fantastic captain that he is, right? So are the qualities of a great starship captain this balance between, compassion and aggression?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, the implication, of course, is, Kirk, the implication of both of these sides being separated is that Kirk has two extremes. Mm-hmm. He's not like in the middle on the good side and in the middle on the bad side. He's really wishy-washy on one side and really horrible on the evil side.
Yeah. So we've learned that the temperature on the planet's going to keep going down as the night progresses, and it's going to reach negative 120 degrees. And Sulu and a couple other members of the crew are trapped down there with very little. And it's interesting because I mentioned earlier that the shuttlecrafts hadn't been introduced yet.
Yeah.
And how do you explain that away as part of the greater continuity of this show?
Yeah, later on, I mean, the shuttlecraft gets some heavy use. Actually, in a couple episodes from now, I believe we start seeing some shuttlecraft use. So I guess we're meant to assume that, they're not here at this point, or they're out of service, but they don't really talk about it much.
Yeah, one thing I'm interested in as we sort of cover this entire show is, at what point is the show going to peak, if you will, or hit its stride, or really sort of be fully formed? There's got to be an episode where that happens, because I mean, we're at the point now where episodes are still being run out of order.
Yep.
We're very, very early in the production run, so it'll be interesting for me, at least, to see when it's really gonna leave nothing to question, like here, where you go, well, where are the shuttlecrafts? Why don't they just go down and get them?
Hold that thought for 1 second, because this particular scene, I think, is a really good integral scene in this episode, because you're seeing Spock. Look at how serious Spock looks. He's lecturing Kirk on showing vulnerability, and in Spock's mind, if Kirk shows the slightest bit of wavering, he's going to lose his command completely. I mean, I think that's extreme, but Spock does have a point there. But I thought that dialogue by Spock was a little extreme.
Yeah, but I think it also illustrates what separates a captain of a starship from a crew member of a starship.
Yeah.
And if anything, it illustrates that not any schmuck.
Oh yeah.
Or
sure.
You could work as hard as you want.
Yeah.
You may never reach that level.
Yeah, it's true, and we'll see. It's a great overhead shot of Kirk there. Yeah. We'll see not long from now what happens when another highly regarded Enterprise crew member gets a chance to be in command in a crisis situation, and how well it doesn't work out. But back to your earlier point here, I think that this is going to be a good thing for us to watch out for, is at what point does the show become fully baked, quote unquote?
Yeah.
Where do we have all of the elements that we consider the mythos of Star Trek, the original series?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's going to be pretty soon from now. So we're still missing a few things. We're still missing the mind meld, right? We haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, we have not seen that.
We haven't seen shuttlecrafts yet. What else haven't we seen yet?
I mean, we're still seeing variations in certain kind of costumes.
True.
Or uniforms.
True. Notice Kirk doesn't have the symbol
on
his dress uniform here.
and it's kind of cool that he switched into his dress uniform just sort of to
help the audience.
Yeah.
Just great performance.
Yeah, Kirk has just made an announcement to the entire ship that there's an imposter on board.
And now, and he breaks the monitor.
Yeah, and you can imagine the anger in any captain's mind when he learns that his authority has been sort of questioned.
Yeah, and when you read some of Shatner's commentary on this episode, he loved this.
Sure, yeah, I can see why.
Yeah, it let him branch out a little bit from the Kirk role and kind of go nuts. Mm-hmm. And he does it. He embraces it. He sells it so well.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked on earlier episodes about William Shatner's approach to acting and his perceived acting ability. And I think another thing that this show really, illustrates over the course of its run is that a lot of the parody that comes out about William Shatner it's kind of amplified. It's kind of based on a handful of moments.
Sure.
And like anybody else, there we go.
Wow.
Thankfully, that wasn't a double axe handle.
Yeah, that could have been dangerous.
So now here's the crew down on
now
planet.
Wait a minute.
It's 20 degrees below zero.
Yeah, 20 degrees below zero. They really should have rethought those temperatures, I think. Thermo heaters are transported down, they duplicate.
And they don't work properly.
And they won't operate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it almost reaches the point where you watch like Stallone in Cliffhanger and say, "Man, he looks really effing cold," and he sells it. Here, it's kind of hard. You'd think that there's a certain point where you get 20 below zero. There are certain body functions that probably shut down.
Right. Now Sulu does a good job of selling it here later on in the episode, where he looks like he's partially frozen, but 20 degrees below zero. I don't think any of us, you and me, I haven't experienced that, and I don't know how many listeners that we're going to have to this show are going to have experienced temperatures that extreme.
No,
I can remember a very small handful of times in my life where I've experienced sub-zero temperatures, and that was maybe -2, -3, and that was like, wow, let me get the hell back inside.
Yeah.
Now, 20 degrees below zero, and he's still in his regular uniform, face fully exposed. Talking, they really should have thought about those temperatures when they were writing this episode. But now they're searching for the imposter, the evil Kirk. This is another really cool. So he gets some really cool shots of the interior of engineering in this. Some of the nice machinery they had down there. And the mood lighting here is very good too. Whoever did the lighting for these shows, I have to look that up. They always did a really good job of creating drama with lighting.
Yeah.
A lot of times you might not think about how much lighting plays into a scene, but this scene I think really illustrates how lighting can be used at these specific angles. You've got some shadows cast on their faces. It's a little dark, a little foreboding. I think it really helps.
Yeah, it's one thing sort of shows in this time period, as compared to today, are a little bit more obvious with with the lighting. Everything was a little bit more pronounced, and I guess you could say it was a little bit more artistic. Not to say that stuff today isn't, artsy. You had a little jump
cut there.
Yeah.
And there's more drama and there's lighting.
Yeah.
You see these shadows, and it's a really good thing that they had the two Kirks in their different outfits for this as well. So now you can have a frame of reference, like, okay, this is good Kirk.
Yeah, even with a little bit of makeup on bad Kirk's face.
Even the facial expressions that Shatner does here for good Kirk versus bad Kirk, they're fantastic.
Oh yeah, and I imagine, from an acting perspective, having the different uniforms on was probably a good sort of tool for Shatner as well.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Because it gave him, if he ever got lost in a scene, you just look down and say, "Oh, I'm in my dress uniform. I'm good Kirk."
And I made a little mistake-o there earlier. He does have the insignia, but it's at the bottom of the shirt.
Yeah. And here we have the face-off. And we have some nice body double work
And,
going on here.
You know, this is great because this is not the first time Kirk will be duplicated in an episode of Star Trek. And in fact, 2 episodes from now, he'll be duplicated again. So we're going to be talking about Kirk being duplicated, but in another way.
Yeah.
Yes, here we go. You know, he's reasoning this out too.
Yeah.
That the evil Kirk can't kill himself.
Yeah, as evil as he is, he can't pull the trigger and, kill that part of himself.
And you know, the evil side of Kirk understands this, and I think he can communicate through that irrational anger.
Mm-hmm. One thing I noticed in this episode, and I actually looked it up just to make sure that I wasn't sort of noticing something. We have the nerve pitch, and they damage they either damage the transporter here, or they reveal something that was causing the problem with the transporter, because Scotty will reference that damage later. But a full score was written for this episode.
Really?
Which is when I was watching it, I noticed how sort of cinematic the score sounds. And this is one of a small group for which a full score was written in, and this one was written by Saul Kaplan. Jeff Bond, a Star Trek author, notes, although he wrote only 2 scores for the series, New York composer Saul Kaplan's music was tracked endlessly throughout the show's first 2 seasons. The Enemy Within is a thrillingly intellectual score, by turns overcome with compassion for Kirk's plight and clinically detached in its melodic experimentation with the situation. The aggressive, threatening, evil Kirk music made major contributions by being tracked into other episodes. So next time you watch this episode with sound, or it is something to take note of, because it seems like they would fully score certain episodes and then sort of cherry pick from them to sort of create sequences for future episodes.
So this scene, you know, we're seeing the scientific part of Spock here, you know, really enjoying the fact that he can analyze some of human nature as he's realized that both of these Kirks are halves of each other, the negative side and and he's going to theorize here the power of command is going to elude Kirk, because he needs this anger or this aggression side of himself. You have your intellect, Jim. You can fight. Yeah, and the Doctor, of course, is taking the softer side.
Yeah, they're doing the glass half empty, glass half full sort of approach.
So, and they're also the Doctor is also supposing that intellect is an attribute of the good side, and you know, base instinct, acting on instinct, is part of the evil side, which I guess it's kind of played out in this episode that way. Oh, here's the Scotty founding a new trouble.
Yeah, and that was a result of the phaser blast.
Yep. Control circuit is gone altogether.
Now, the only thing I didn't understand was whether that was revealed, like the fact that that blast created that hole for Scotty to see it, or that caused the trouble after the fact. And now they're at 41 degrees below zero.
That looks like a parachute. The heck is that?
And this is pretty, Sulu
I
kind of...
I love the fact that he mentions a pot of hot coffee, so that now we know for sure that hot coffee exists in the 23rd century.
Yeah. And I also like the image it created when Sulu said,
rice wine.
Can you drop a long rope down? They're probably, hundreds of miles above the surface.
And, never mind. I was going to say something, but I think I'll skip that. So we're getting some details here of our transporter issues.
Yeah. And it's going to take them a week to repair this, which was another thing that I thought was kind of...
20 degrees below zero. How long can the average human last in 20 degrees below zero?
But also, what kind of repairs in any scenario are going to take a week to do? I mean, you'd think most repairs, if something's going to take a week, you say, you know what? We're just going to rebuild the fucker. You know what I mean?
Or we got to take it into the starbase.
Yeah, I mean...
75 degrees below zero.
Yeah, it's still dropping.
And here we're going to see a mechanic that gets used in other episodes, heating a rock with a phaser.
Yeah. Well, this really illustrates the different levels of a phaser. You
Yep,
know, in
yep.
addition to just having the stun or the kill, it's also able to almost like a microwave heat from within, inanimate objects.
I notice Sulu just said we should give room service another call. So does that suppose there are still hotels with room service that he could use that as a reference?
I guess, yeah. I guess down in
Maybe on the ship they have room service in the quarters, right? You got a yeoman. Yeoman will bring you some stuff to your room.
Yeah, within certain hours. I hope the pricing's at least better than hotels.
Well,
hope they're not paying a $13 chicken sandwich or something.
You know what? I don't think they don't mention money on board the ship at all.
Yeah.
So maybe, and I think Picard says in I think it was First Contact that they mankind evolved beyond the need for wealth as a why am I words are escaping me here?
Yeah, like a status.
Their goal in life is not material possession or wealth. It's intellectual and scientific truth, I guess. So maybe that principle has held in the in the early years.
Although
here
they do talk about credits at some point, don't they?
Maybe they do.
Yeah, I don't know. And here now the evil Kirk is gonna die, and we get this really really great scene where the good Kirk comes over, holds hands with the evil Kirk, and basically talks him down. He talks him out of dying.
Yeah.
Which is really a great scene from a performance standpoint. It really shows the level of emotion that Shatner could sort of hit as an actor.
Yeah, this scene always stood out to me too. Mm-hmm. And he's telling him not to be afraid. I mean, you could see that he's got there's a genuine tenderness in the good side of Kirk here. And even though this evil Kirk has done some questionable things on the ship, the good Kirk is still.
Mm-hmm. And there he is. He realizes he has to fight, and is thankfully.
And then he's normalizing. His levels are normalizing, and he passes out.
So this is another one of those episodes where they've got what is seemingly an impossible, scenario in front of them. And it's one of those things where you think, how are they going to resolve this? And then also, what would be the ramifications of having two Kirks?
Really.
And here you have the good Kirk sort of, he's sort of talking down the evil Kirk behind his back.
Yeah.
Which doesn't help.
The evil Kirk overheard him talking about bringing him back inside himself. Mm-hmm. So, this is going to set the evil Kirk off into a self-preservation mode where he's not going to want to go back. He wants to continue to exist on his own. Spock is right. Dr. McCoy is...
McCoy's reinforcing the fact that it takes both, both sides of the captain, sort of like a Reese's peanut butter cup. You need the peanut butter and the chocolate in order to create that great taste.
Sure, and that's why white chocolate Reese's cups don't work for me. But dark chocolate Reese's cups do.
Yeah.
So I can see that. The only thing about this, like I said, that I was questioning was the extreme of the bad side of Kirk, because
it's too much for you.
I think it's a lot for me to take in that the good side of Kirk has to keep all of these parts of himself in check that wouldn't necessarily think would exist. If Kirk had a choice to be evil, I just don't see him. Well, maybe I'm way off apparently.
Well, yeah,
that's that dog again.
Yeah, and this is where Scotty thinks he's cracked the code, if you will.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
He does his scientific or his uses his he's at the height of his engineering powers here, and he finds
Dramatic
a way to send the animal back through with its double, and basically they're not going to beam him all the way down. They're going to send him into wherever I break all the particles down and reassemble
into
them.
the transport buffer.
Yeah.
And here's Spock is going to give the little one, the dog, the evil dog, a sedative here.
Yeah, just to calm him down.
Ooh, that's an evil looking dog. Scotty is got him.
Yeah. Yeah, and
And
there's
here's
the
the passionate Kirk. Don't hurt him. More dramatic lighting. The lighting in this episode is spectacular. I really love this. The barking has stopped. The dog has been knocked out.
And again, like on the...
they put them on the same transporter pad.
Yes. This is almost... It made me think of sort of the Jeff Goldblum version of the Fly.
Fly, right. Brundlefly.
Yes.
Brundlefly. So now we learn that there were actually two separate dogs, weren't there?
Yeah, although...
Maybe that might be a doll.
Yeah, it could just be it's not moving, so it could just be the suit stuffed with a...
Well, we're going to have to pause this at some point in the future and zoom in on that second dog there. Maybe that... No, it looks pretty dog-like to me, but...
So now
and away they go.
He's gone off into
the transport buffer.
Yeah.
And it takes a while. The computer's got to calculate a lot of stuff. When Goldblum and the Fly merged, that was almost instantaneous.
Yeah. Now again, sort of, as I referenced earlier in the episode, I don't know how comfortable I'd be with transporter technology.
No, and a lot of transporter mishaps happen over the course of the show and the movies.
Yeah.
So, but one thing that's also really interesting to think about is, aside from the bad things that can happen in a transporter, imagine all the good things they could do with it as well. They could probably take things out of you. So, say for instance you had gotten shot or you had a piece of shrapnel in you, they could probably put you in the transport buffer. Just take that part, subtract that stuff out, and rematerialize you.
Yeah, with a good transporter operator.
Yeah, great algorithms and whatnot.
But I think in one of the movies they have a pretty gruesome transporter malfunction.
Yeah, it was the motion picture.
Motion picture, yeah.
That was before. Yeah, that was the first person to transport over. Apparently, they're having some sort of issues. Now look at this, Spock wearing a phaser on the bridge. Yeah. Mm-hmm. How often does that happen?
Yeah, see, that's one of those things where the show, when it's fully baked,
you don't see that.
You won't see that. I mean, you won't even see. Oh, and there's the dog died.
Don't let good Kirk know.
Yeah.
And Spock is walking all over the ship with a phaser.
Yeah. There'll be a point where the phasers aren't seen until they actually need them. Yeah, so we're still at a point where the show doesn't look and feel exactly like it should.
Yeah. The animal was terrified and confused. Yeah.
So Spock is saying that as an animal, it couldn't understand what was happening to it, and that ultimately caused its death.
So now we can theorize that Kirk could survive because he has his intelligence controlling his feet.
He understands what's supposed to happen here. Yeah. But they are painting that sort of idea that, oh my God, Kirk's got to choose here, Mm-hmm. And I'd imagine that if it happened to me, there wouldn't really be much of a choice.
You got to put it back together.
You have to,
do. Yeah, he has no choice. I don't think any of us would have a choice in this particular situation. But it's just a matter of how successful would we be? Would we be able to retain our sanity? What would happen if the intermixture wasn't right? What if Scotty had the balance off?
Ooh. And my TV just reset itself for some reason. But the episode's still playing. So.
Oh, here we go. All right, we're back. We're back.
That was very weird.
We didn't miss anything.
Yeah, the Blu-ray player never stopped.
Wow.
But the interesting thing here is that Kirk thought about it, and it wasn't until Spock reminded him that there were men down on the planet that he said, "Of course, I have to go through with this." Yep. So,
so he's
obviously he's doubting. He's losing faith in his ability to make the right decision.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and he's asking for somebody else to make the decision, and that's very, very significant. Mm-hmm. For Kirk. Now you're really seeing, and Spock is asking if he's relinquishing his command. Yeah. No. That's the thing about Spock in this episode, man. Spock is...
he wants it. I think over the course of this series...
He goes back and forth.
Yeah.
Sometimes he wants it, sometimes he doesn't. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there's other episodes of this series that we'll talk about when we get to them where Spock's happy to take the chair and take the command.
And other times he's not, though.
Yeah,
Other times he'll tell you, I have no desire to have a ship of my own.
Yeah. It'll be fun to see those episodes. When that scenario presents itself.
Sure. And see, and Kirk's got a phaser too.
Yeah. Now this seems like another one of those convenient sort of TV or movie moments where Kirk is going to escort the evil version of himself down to the transporter area by himself. Even though he is equipped with a phaser, he's in a weakened state
really
emotionally.
Not the greatest of ideas.
It just seems like one of those things where they could have been like, you know what, get 2 security guys up here, and we'll do this together. So now here's Sulu. He's basically saying we're really on our last legs here.
And this is a great partially frozen Sulu.
Yeah.
117 below. No way in hell would he even be alive anymore.
Well,
There's
you don't
no
know
way.
how advanced those blankets are.
Come
they
on,
could be
man. Come on, man. Come on.
He's losing his
Be
sight.
realistic here. Reality doesn't change. Yep. So now we're still, Kirk is still being a little indecisive here about what to do. He's starting to turn into a really gelatinous mass. Simon's turned to jelly,
Yes.
as it were.
That's what I was thinking of, a little airplane reference there.
Yeah. Now he's hearing Sulu, and he's having a really hard time coming up with anything inspirational to say at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So he can't even function. He knows he can't continue like this.
Mm-hmm.
Can't wait. He's got to do it now.
Yeah.
So I think this can't let he realizes. I don't think feels like he has time to call in security. He's got to get them down to the transporter immediately because Sulu is in his death throes, as well as the other.
You'd almost imagine though that there would have been some kind of instructions to say, you know what, let's just never leave the captain alone.
Yeah, really.
Can't be entirely trusted to take care of himself.
True. Now, here's another, you were talking about plot convenience before. Why? All he would have to do is just stun him with that phaser and drag him down there, right?
Yeah.
Why does he have to, allow him to walk by himself? Just set it to stun, zap him, and here we go.
He's playing possum.
And now we realize our mistakes.
Oh,
Kirk.
And good Kirk's no match for evil Kirk when it comes to.
He's too weak. Oh, right in the face with that phaser. Pistol whipped. Yep.
And now the first thing evil Kirk decides is he's got to finish the job that he didn't earlier. And I got to say that Rand has to have an increased sort of, defense mechanism here. I mean, I'd imagine it's something that bothered her for the rest of her service.
I would think so. And, now see, she's in a bad position here because, he's the captain. She's his he's her, she's his yeoman, and she kind of has to do what he wants. And,
And here's evil Kirk saying, we're leaving orbit. We're leaving them down on the planet.
Prepare to leave orbit.
See, and this is why you don't leave good Kirk alone.
Yep.
And here we go. Now we've got the reveal. We have the classic. It's not me. It's him. It's him.
And we'll see this done a couple more times too with Kirk. In Star Trek VI is another classic one.
Oh, with the shapeshifter.
With the shapeshifter. It's not me. It's him. Yeah.
And assuming that we continue this show, we will eventually talk about all of the movies and the original cast did.
Yeah. And now we're going to leave it up to Spock to figure it out, huh? Spock can always tell.
Yeah. And he's still got the, even though I think it was referenced, the scratch on his face.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, and here we go.
Oh, it's great. I love this performance.
Yeah.
Oh, he just tosses the guy for no reason.
Yep.
Just grabs him by the head and throws him across the bridge. Oh. Uh-oh. He's armed. And Kirk somewhere got another phaser.
Yeah.
There's that lighting again.
With the scratch on the other side of his face, too, by the way.
Oh, good eye.
So I don't know if they flipped that shot or if yeah, look at that.
There it is. Good eye. Little continuity issue there.
Yeah, or they flipped the shot, maybe.
Or maybe they.
Yeah,
it's possible. That lighting.
And now it's the evil version breaking down and saying he doesn't want to go,
pleading for his independence. But he has to know.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably one of those acting moments that
Yeah.
people use to make fun of Shatner.
Yeah.
It's great.
And there's the hug.
Love it.
I don't know. I think it would be kind of cool to be able to sort of hug yourself.
Yeah,
I think we've all reached points in our life where we just needed that hug. And who could probably give you a better hug than yourself?
Yeah, especially when you're going through something and you're trying to work through it in your own mind and And here we go, the grand experiment.
Yeah.
See if Kirk will survive being fused back together, and the obvious concern on McCoy's face, and Kirk giving him the nodding smile. Everything's fine, man. We've been through this before.
Yeah. Now, where are
And where's Scotty?
Well, yeah, I guess Scotty wasn't trusted to...
Scotty, you screwed this up last time with the dog. We can't let you do this again.
But now you got to wonder, where does the extra clothes go? Where do the extra boots go?
Delete. A computer can just delete them. It's the transporter, man. They broke them up in all the molecules. It can say, well, we got a duplicate shirt here. Let's just delete. Actually, maybe it transported them into the captain's drawer back in his quarters, man. Maybe it's that sophisticated.
Because that is not the shirt that was created by the transporter when the double was created. Because he switched into the dress uniform.
That's another really good point. Now we've also realized that if the transporter is capable of duplicating someone, it's capable of creating matter.
Yeah. It created
which we know is beyond the laws of physics. Matter cannot be created nor destroyed. But the transporter created a Kirk out of seemingly nothing.
Yeah. And now he's back in full command of his powers. And he's making decisions instantly. So the crew is back up.
And frostbite abounds.
Yep. So as we wrap up this episode, I think it's a good time to discuss whether this is an essential episode.
Great time. And
I guess I'll go to you first, because normally I have to make the initial assessment. So I'm going to throw this one in your.
Okay. Well, I am prepared to say at this point in time that this is absolutely 100% essential episode, from my opinion.
Oh, wow.
So many great moments in this episode. So much great performances by Shatner, despite the fact that that's the questionable assault scene with Rand. I would question the need for that scene or the potential for a better execution or a better rewrite of that particular part of the episode. But I think that you learn a lot about Kirk as a person in this episode by separating out the two pieces. You learn a lot about his internal struggles and what he goes through to balance himself and be a great captain. You're seeing right here that he's repairing that relationship with Rand. And that had to be an awkward thing.
Yeah.
There's some, even Spock's a little awkward in this, but I think it's a good performance and a good bit of character building on the part of Spock and McCoy and Scotty. So you see a lot of good character development pieces throughout this episode. So I'll definitely say, and there's a little smirk from Spock, another great overhead shot of Kirk, but I think this episode is totally, in my own estimation, in my own lineup, I definitely would call this an essential episode.
All right, I am going to tell you that your sort of assessment changed my mind. Because I was initially going to say that in terms of being essential, I did not think this was an essential episode, but based on your argument,
I'm honored.
I will get on board with you and say that this is worthy of being marked an essential episode of Star Trek: The Original Series.
I feel very honored by that. Very
so
honored.
Here we are, wrapping up another episode. This one was a lot of fun to watch.
A great fun to watch. I always love this one.
A lot of fun to talk about. There were some interesting concepts that it brought up. And it had some incredible talent behind the scenes.
Absolutely. And that this is one of the best episodes for demonstration of Star Trek dramatic lighting of all the episodes there are. I think this one makes some of the greatest use of lighting, especially to illustrate the good versus the bad Kirk.
All right, so we're going to wrap this week up. We will be back next week where we talk about Mudd's Women.
All right, take it easy, everybody. Thanks for listening.
I have to take him back. Inside myself. I can't survive without him. I don't want to take him back. He's like an animal. A thoughtless, brutal animal. Yet it's me. Me